He was a Packers fan back in '57. The Vikings didn't move here till '61.
Personally, I'm not a fan of any pro football team. I think they're all mercenaries.
Sure,
Are we ready to
it's early.
start some
You
business?
got another
guys
minute
done
to
with your banter?
Sure.
I hate to interrupt.
Oh.
All right. All good? All right. Oh, gavel and everything. We'll do that.
Well, they're yours.
In person. All right. We'll call to order the EDA regular meeting, June 21st, 2021. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
June 2021 minutes. Any questions, comments, changes? If there are none, I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 4, street name for the new service road.
Thank you, Julie. Staff is requesting recommendations on the proposed street name or names for the new service road from 187th Avenue to Viking Boulevard. In general, street names in East Bethel are based on the Anoka grid system. In the area of the frontage road, the grid names are based on names of cities in the United States. The first quarter mile east of Trunk Highway 65 includes in order Aberdeen, Baltimore, Chisholm, and Davenport, as shown on the attached Exhibit 1 in your packet, which is displayed on your screen. Alternatives for street names that could be considered are as follows. The first alternative is based on the current construction plan, which is shown on the exhibit. And the current plan assumes the street would be Davenport Street at the intersection of Viking Boulevard, but then would change to Baltimore Street south of the roundabout, as shown in the exhibit. It is anticipated that this street would eventually be extended to the south to the to the streets within future developments that will be adjacent to the frontage road. For example, it is very likely that the interior development streets could also align with the Davenport grid line. However, there would already be a street named Davenport to the west of the future street. This example is again shown on Exhibit 1. So if this stays Davenport Street, then in the development that Elevage will do, there could be an internal street named Davenport. We currently have this situation at the Ice Arena. There's a street behind the arena named Davenport. And the road going into the arena from 209th is also named Davenport. In the situation with the Ice Arena, there are no homes on that have Davenport addresses, but this is a situation that could arise if we follow this option. The other option is to add additional street names. This alternative could include changing the names of the streets to the extent practical to match the Anoka grid in Exhibit 2. Which is shown on the screen. The frontage road would start out as Davenport at Viking Boulevard, and as you travel south, the name would change to Aberdeen and then to Baltimore. This method can be confusing to drivers since the street changes names 3 times along the same alignment within a relatively short distance. This alternative would also include additional expenses in adding and maintaining additional street signs. Alternative 3 is choose one name for the street, which would be as shown here. So the whole service road then would be one name, even though it does cross some of the city grid line. This name could continue as the frontage road continues north and south. The main issue with this alternative is the name would not follow the Anoka County grid. Choosing a name outside the grid would need to be clearly documented to all emergency services. It is recommended if this method is used, then the name should be consistent with the Anoka County grid methodology, i.e. choose the name of the city in the United States as shown in Exhibit 3 or even add a new name for the street. This item was discussed and tabled by City Council at their June 14th, 2021 meeting. The consensus of council was to have one name for the street and to continue the street name to the extent possible for future extensions that would eventually connect Briarwood Lane to the south and 221st Avenue to the north. Staff is requesting recommendations for the proposed street name for the new Trunk Highway 65 service road. Also in your attachments, there are a few names that have been proposed and some suffixes that could be used for the designation of the route as a street, way, boulevard, parkway. So at this time, if anybody has any recommendations, we want to entertain them and we'll bring them before council at the June 28th meeting to select a name for the service road.
Well, I was just wondering if anybody's given any consideration to names that weren't on the list.
What's that, Dan?
I was wondering if there was considerations besides the suggested names
Besides
or
the 5.
Aberdeen.
Yes, those are just examples we've been given so far.
Okay.
And it could be named Davenport Street all the way through. Davenport is more consistent with anything else. But it also could be named, we could rename it and just choose it one name to follow as far as we practically could. The only thing about changing it from Davenport is where we get into places in the future, especially around the post office and the bank, where it changes street names, we'd have to change address names for some businesses.
I was thinking of a name more in terms of recognition of someone involved in the city, like Davis Drive.
Yeah.
Davis is a city in the US, isn't it?
I would hope not.
Jack, it seems to me that it'd be more consistent to keep it Aberdeen rather than Davenport. Is that the recommendation of Davenport just because where it comes out on Viking?
Well, let me go through some more slides here and I can show you. Wrong way.
And do we have an overlay of the proposed elevage? Sorry, I should have looked through all the attachments. An overlay of the proposed elevage development and how the streets lay out, or is that what we're seeing in the on page, with the street on page 10?
We do not, and mainly because we're not exactly sure what the final is right now.
Okay,
And I did speak, and I'll address this later, they're in the final design stages of that, but they haven't shown us what their copy is going to be. We do think, though, that it's going to be in this area right here, and it was proposed as almost a grid.
okay.
Their last concept that they gave to us, but that could change too. But like I say, the possibility, if we named this Davenport here, there could be a Davenport within the development.
Right.
The discussion at council, I think we were all had the consensus is to have it one name, so it
Yeah.
doesn't change.
Yeah,
I agree
I
with
And
agree.
that.
but also have a unique name to it, not use the grid name at all.
okay,
For kind of two reasons. One is, you know, it's kind of an important road, you know, rather than just
An
name
average
it,
name.
you know, Aberdeen or whatever, you know,
Mhm.
we wanted something that would be distinctive.
Like Davis Drive.
Sure, that is distinctive. But then also something that is kind of fitting to what's happening in this area.
Okay.
You know, I think that's probably where some of these suggestions like enterprise and venture came out of, so.
sure.
And then, you know, we were kind of blindsided that night with it, so it's like, well, we're not gonna come with it now, and so we recruited help from the other commissions and anyone else that wants to
Okay.
come up with suggestions, so.
So something more symbolic is what council was interested in.
We didn't have any, we didn't talk about any suggestions at all, other than that
Just
it'd be that, something
not be a
unique.
common grid name.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
So would that introduce more confusion for emergency services to have a new road name, or?
No, they would all be notified.
No, and actually, emergency services would prefer one road name. It's less confusing that way than it is where we change the name 3 or 4 times in the same
Yeah.
mile of the street.
Right.
well, and having that unique name, as soon as that comes out, you automatically know not only what road it is, but in this case, what section of the city it is. 'Cause
Right.
at this point, it doesn't run half the city,
Mhm.
and as Jack was alluding to, you know, there's kind of, at least the plan on paper to have this basically come all the way up to 221st here. And then that, you know, we could end up naming the whole road that too, so
Sure.
there's options there.
To your point about Aberdeen, Tom, is Aberdeen almost parallels 65. It's the
Yeah.
first one off here.
Yeah.
So you can see these solid and
I
dash
see.
lines will be the proposed alignments going south. This one's actually Davenport, this one's Baltimore. There's actually a Chisholm Street in between those. And if you go further north from Viking Boulevard, here's where the new service road ends, so you can see going north, this kind of approximate Davenport going this way. It does have to make a change
Sure.
to avoid some wetlands in this area before it gets back to 205th Avenue. And that ties into the actual existing service road, which is Davenport, with the exception of one little stretch in front of the ice arena, which is Aberdeen.
So would that be all renamed potentially?
That's correct. There's only one business on here that's addressed as Aberdeen. That's the storage units. The ice arena is actually addressed as Highway 65, because there used to be a little gravel entrance off 65 to access that.
Right.
And then going north from there to tie into 221st, it follows, this would be Baltimore, and then it would follow Aberdeen alignment until it gets just north of 217th, and then it wind up again as Davenport, so.
Lots of different curves. They cross lots of grid lines.
Right.
And that north section is the only piece of that proposed future line that we have any right-of-way, correct?
That's correct. We have right-of-way along this point to right here.
So everything
So
else
far.
is just lines on a map.
But, well, going along with the names, came up with a couple with kind of keeping a theme to East Bethel or East Bethel landmarks. Of course, there's Cedar Creek that is close, so it could be Cedar Creek Drive. It does cross Crooked Brook right there, so could have Crooked Brook in the name, or but if it proceeds going north all the way up to 221st, you know, still a name. Or to go with, we have Viking Boulevard. Related to that could be Norse or Norsemen, because they're part of the same group.
That's where that Valkyrie name came from.
Right, I was, yeah, that
We
makes
have a
sense.
Viking Boulevard, and we also have a Valhalla Drive.
Oh, sure.
So that kind of was the reason I think somebody proposed that name. It kind of kept in the pattern.
So we probably shouldn't name it, Ragnarok.
There's a Valhalla Drive already.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah, I mean,
a,
that doesn't, yeah.
So go with
And there's
it.
a Cedar, and there's a Cedar Creek Drive, or Cedar.
Cedar
Creek-
Drive.
Huh?
I think it's a Cedar, isn't it?
it's Cedar
Drive?
Road in Coon Lake. Coon Lake
No, I'm
Beach.
thinking in Oak Grove.
Yeah, the County Road,
Yeah, I think that's Cedar Drive.
County Road
Cedar
13. I
Road.
think they,
Yeah.
They might call it Cedar Drive. I mean, to me, I think you want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
I personally don't find it confusing to have an intersection between Aberdeen and Davenport. We already have one of those up by the post office. And to me, the first road in to the east from Highway 65, when it's right there, is Aberdeen Street. I don't see a problem with it calling it Aberdeen Street, but that's just my own opinion. Because of the fact that so much of it is right along the highway.
Right.
But I think the other thing Jack and I talked about, there would be actually very few, at least in this stretch of road, in the new part, very, very few businesses that'll front that road. But if it is something called, if something's unique, you know, Cedar or Crooked Brook Parkway or something like that, you know, I can see businesses wanting to use that address because it's more distinctive.
Right.
You know, I think you were on council too, back when Village Bank came in, and they wanted their address to be Highway 65 and not Ulysses Street. And I think they still have that, because they wanted something that's more noticeable rather than a city, city street name, so. My only suggestion at this point is, I didn't think about the extensions. And I like the idea of calling it a parkway, just from the aspect of it. When you're driving a parkway, I think it too, just naturally people drive slower on a parkway than it would be on a boulevard or a drive or anything. I don't know, to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it always seems to me if you're
That makes
driving,
sense.
you know, Paul Parkway, you're taking your time going through there, you know, so. That's my only suggestion at this point, so. But when are you taking, when do you have to have the council packet done, Thursday?
Thursday.
So if we can send names into Jack.
I mean, I was just thinking, I mean, the Sandhill Cranes on our logo, I don't know if we want to embrace that or not, or if that's something we're trying to,
Sandhill Parkway,
I was thinking Sandhill Parkway,
that's distinctive.
you know?
I like that different than like Davenport. Like Davenport is such an aged word. So it doesn't seem like
Right.
something you want to grab onto for here and now for a future, a development that's new. So I like the idea of something that's new and.
Yeah, and
Like
what,
when you say Paul Parkway, where is it? It's in Blaine. You know,
Right.
you know where Paul Parkway is.
Mhm.
You know, if it has something that's distinctive, in certain cases, you know what city it is.
right,
You know where Crosstown Boulevard is. You know,
mm-hmm,
it goes right, through Andover and Ham Lake, so.
right. Right, I do like
Sorry,
the
Brian, putting
idea
you
of
in
something
Davenport,
different.
so, or Aberdeen. Anyhow, council needs ideas for the next week.
So is this just for discussion, or are we to make a,
This is just for discussion and
Motion, okay.
recommendation.
okay.
So it's
Ask
actually,
your families, come up with names.
Ask those marketing people in your families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so if you have suggestions, email Jack. He will get them included.
Okay,
Maybe we could make it a voting thing in order to kind of gain more interest in the area and with what we're doing with the city.
resident buy-in.
Resident buy-in.
Well, you gotta have it done in the next 3 days.
Oh, all
Make it real
right.
quick.
And actually, we talked about that at council and thought that might be a little
And
out
the reason for
of,
that,
hard to handle, so.
this is a MnDOT requirement. We got a late notice from them that they had to
Oh,
approve all their
okay.
final plans with the street names on them.
Got it.
And we originally had Davenport listed, and we just wanted to make sure that was the correct one we wanted to go with. Davenport was just put on there because it matched the grid, was closest to the grid at the intersection of Viking Boulevard. And would probably be the most portion of the grid that would be used going north. But again, I agree with Catherine, Davenport is not that catchy and enticing of a
Not
name.
even
so.
a word people use anymore.
Right.
Old people still use it.
Who
Careful.
we calling old?
I like Sandhill. I like that.
I like Sandhill.
Thanks.
I think that's a neat idea.
Okay.
Sand Hill Parkway.
Parkway.
I like
Or
that.
Drive or.
I think we should make that our recommendation as a city.
It's
as
better
the
than
EDA.
Crane Parkway, right?
Right. I'd like to move that we forward Sand Hill Parkway up to the city council as the EDA recommendation.
Okay,
Is
I
there a
don't know that
second?
we need to vote. Is this just discussion or
That's, if you
We-
wanna
we
do
really-
it.
if we want to make
I
a
really
motion, we can
want a
make a
big
motion?
list, so.
It can die on no second, but that's okay. I gotta go.
Well, if, let's
At least
leave
we
it.
got them off the Davis Drive.
Yes,
That's right,
yes.
that's right.
So let's leave it at that. We've got that as a suggestion, and if anybody else has any other ideas, brilliant thoughts that come to them in the middle of the night.
Alphabet Avenue, A, B, C, D.
Yeah, there you go. So email Jack. All right. So let's move on to agenda number 5, the Cambia Hills Report.
On Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, the city received a notification from Cambia Hills East Bethel that their facility would be closing at 3 p.m. on Friday, June the 11th, 2021. While we were aware that the East Bethel operation was having difficulties relative to reaching their full patient level due to COVID, we had no indication of the depth of their financial issues. The closing was as much as a surprise and shock to us as it was to everyone else. Regarding the East Bethel closure, Leslie Champlin, President and CEO of Hills Youth, stated that after many years of finding the right community to build in, construction starts and delays, opening the doors during the pandemic, our ability to pay for this facility, licensing issues and bad press, we were forced to close our doors. As an addition, she stated, a significant piece of this perfect storm is that the state of Minnesota Department of Health and Human Services has not given us the rate adjustment our bondholders have been waiting for. The bondholders who paid to build this building have been funding us, payroll and all, since December of 2020. They have reached their limit of $1.5 million in additional funds to keep Cambia Hills of East Bethel open, and DHS has passed the deadline of May 1st to give us the rate adjustment, with no new date in sight. We have notified the state that we will be closing and making appropriate and expeditious placement of residents. 4 days later, on July 15th, 2021, Ms. Chaplin sent another notice regarding their Duluth facility, announcing that it would also be closing.
That's a typo,
It's not
Jack.
July 15th yet.
I'm sorry,
June.
June 15th. Thank you, Dan. Due to the extraordinarily high fixed cost, the state's inaction on rate adjustments and the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, the East Bethel facility and the Hills face an insurmountable financial burden. We have pursued every avenue available to us to find a viable financial solution, but time and our options have run out and we must close the facility. So within 4 days, all their Hills Youth and Family Services function have ceased. The City of East Bethel's financial involvement with the Cambia Hills project were the improvements to the 189th Avenue and extension of water and sewer service to this facility. There was a special assessment of 50% of the cost of the 189th Avenue road improvements and utilities that was approved and placed on the Cambia Hills property on May 29th, 2019 by City Council. The assessed amount was $278,500 to be repaid to their taxes applicable to their property over a 10-year period at 4% interest. The 2020 and first half 2021 assessment payments have been made, and the balance due on the assessment was $238,000. In addition to the assessment for Cambia Hills, the remaining costs were assessed by deferment to Our Savior's Lutheran Church and David Anderson, benefiting property owners on the north side of 189th Avenue. As this is a special assessment, any unpaid balances run with the property and would generally be paid as part of the closing of the sale to a new owner, or in a rare exception, be transferred to the purchaser of the property. In short, we won't lose any money, but it may take us longer to recover the assessment costs should the property be unsold or reopening be delayed for any lengthy period of time. Interest would continue to accrue on the assessment until it's satisfied. Also, any utility charges that are unpaid will be assessed on the property at a council hearing that is conducted in October of each year. Collection of those fees would occur upon reopening the facility or sale of the property to another entity. Strictly from a monetary standpoint, the city will not lose any money. However, in this case, the real extent of our loss will be a much-needed service, a major employee, and a good corporate citizen. East Bethel Cambia Hills was a privately financed project by investors and revenue bonds issued by U.S. Bank. On June 15, 2021, Mayor Voss and staff participated in a conference call with Certus Financial. It's a financial firm based in Minneapolis serving as advisors to the bondholders until receivers are appointed to address this matter. As they are in the initial process of putting all the pieces together regarding the financial aspects of the closure, Certus was not able to elaborate on the details of the plans for the future of the property. They did provide us the following information. Their role is to protect the assets of the creditors while at the same time safeguarding and ensuring the preservation of the facility. They assured us that the maintenance facility will continue and their goal is to be good neighbors during the transfer process. There will be maintenance personnel on site during the day and as required at other times. They hope to be part of the process to turn the facility around to be used in a similar fashion and reopen in a manner that is satisfactory to both the investors and the city. There was a consensus that the facility is a specially designed building for a singular purpose and conversion to secondary uses are most likely unfeasible. Reopening to similar use appears as the practical option of the facility going forward. Security of the facility was discussed and roles of all parties with this responsibility were reviewed. Communication between Certus and the city was emphasized as a priority, and the city was assured that we would be kept in the loop on any new information or proposals for the future operation of the building and the property. Staff will update EDA as we receive additional information related to this item. I thought it was important to share the last part to show that we did have the discussion with the group that is looking after the interests of the bondholders at this time, relay the extent of the conversation, and hopefully the emphasis that would reopen as a similar use will be fulfilled. As we all recognize, there's a critical need to be satisfied here, and hopefully there will be some influence from the political side to make this happen. But that's the status of Cambia Hills at this point.
What other kind of facilities would use, or what other kind of providers would use a facility like this?
It would have to be probably something we hope would be a similar or an identical service. You know, it's 100 beds lost for this critical care need. It's been identified as a real priority for this age group. As far as something that would be similar, it would probably have to be somewhere along the medical treatment line. As we talked a little bit before the meeting, the project cost for the building itself and surrounding improvements to the outside was $25 million. The land cost was $880,000. So sale to another type of user and the repurposing cost would probably make this very difficult for anybody to have an interest in it. Probably wouldn't sell for that price, but it's still going to be very expensive to repurpose it for uses other than which it's designed. The building has classrooms, it has dorm facilities, mini gym, full commercial kitchen, cafeteria. I don't know how many people have been in it. The building materials are generally distinctly different than a lot of other buildings of this type because they have to be those that cannot be damaged or vandalized real easy. So it's a very, very specifically designed building for a very specific use, which makes secondary uses of it much more expensive to change over to.
We basically asked them that question too, and I think two things to add on Jack's report is that the two gentlemen we talked to were, I mean, they expressed the same kind of concern about the loss of the service to the state and the community. And, you know, so they understand that, you know, kind of in reference to the way this facility was built. The other thing they added too is that as a business, they specialize in like senior homes and these kind of type of facilities in terms of how they manage it and then resell them. So that was kind of good to hear too, because they're, you know, that's kind of a specialty in that they're doing. So, you know, again, they don't know what their future use is. You know, their first priority is fiduciary to their bondholders, and that means getting as much return as they can. So, that's about as far as they would or really can say of what the future use. And that the fact that we talked to them 3 days after, you know, they closed it. So,
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, as time goes on here, we'll get updated and they seem pretty sincere in the fact that they're going to keep us involved. So.
I think the critical thing is now is they are financial advisors to the bondholders. They're still waiting on the appointment of the receivers, and they said they had not been appointed as the receivers, but they anticipated that they may be. I'm hoping that they will, at least based on our conversation. So then once it goes into receivership, they'll know a little bit more about the direction on where they're going and can provide us some other updates.
I like the article brings up how this sort of service had been available for over 100 years. I mean, was there really any detail about what caused the gap in funding that kind of led to all this breaking down?
I think the only thing we know is just what has been on the press releases. You know, even, I mean, I had a conversation with Ms. Champlin on the last day I talked to her, and she couldn't or wouldn't. She didn't really add anything more than what the press release said. So, I mean, I think she had a little more emphasis on the fact about the DHS not working with them very well. But other than that, you know.
I think at this point it'd be speculative and maybe unfair to make those kind of judgments or guesses, but, you know, basically what Steve has said were the things that were given to us on the financial issues that they faced. And again, the biggest issue, this was the perfect storm created by COVID, and they were never able to reach their levels of capacity for their patients, and they had trouble getting staff because of COVID, and that was another reason they couldn't get the level of patients. And all things came together just to make it impossible for them to succeed in this, which is extremely unfortunate.
That's too bad. I mean, there are other groups out there. I mean, I don't know if Prairie Care is a similar type facility.
You know,
If that's
Canby Hills they
pretty
treated
unique.
the more severe cases
Okay,
than
okay.
what Prairie Care would do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think Prairie Care was short-term kind of stuff.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, but not as intense, I think is maybe
Yeah.
the term to use, but,
Yeah,
because this was like, I remember when this first came to us a few years ago, they talked about the gap.
Need a high level of service.
Yeah, the high level, and this
Yeah.
is the one segment of the demographics
Okay.
of the mental health issue that hasn't been
Right.
addressed until now, and now
That's
there's
too
a gap
bad.
again, so.
Yeah.
well, does the city have any involvement in repurposing the building or dealing with that? Or is this strictly the building is private and the city just kind of sits to see what happens?
It's a private building. The only issues that the city would have would be in the use of it as far as zoning goes. This is currently zoned, I believe, now R2, and it has a special caveat that allows medical facility use.
Yeah, I think, you know, if this was like a big warehouse that you had a multitude of uses and users, and then I think that'd be something that we could, you know, help campaign for, but it's like, this is so specialty, I don't know how we
Right.
would do it. I mean, to me, I think, you know, it was part of our conversation with Certus was the fact that, you know, our community, and not just the city, but the community really supports what was going on, and we would continue to be supportive, you know, if another operation came in and wanted to do the same thing,
Right.
so.
Well, I guess I would possibly make a suggestion to reach out to, is it Certus that is taking over? That if they need anything from the city or anything, any partnership or anything, to keep in contact and let us know whatever the city can do to help.
That was part of our discussion, and we made that offer to them over the phone, and
Okay.
told them that if we could be any of assistance to them, just to let us know.
Did they indicate how soon they'd be appointing a receiver?
They didn't say, and I'd really hesitate to guess. I would assume it would be.
My guess, it might have
soon.
happened by now, because
Yeah.
I think they mentioned they could even hear something that
Yeah.
afternoon yet, so.
Okay,
And they assumed it was going to be them, so,
that they themselves would be the receiver?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
so
okay,
that was kind of the indication. so.
okay.
And I think also they had on the Brian Reader discussion too, you know, when we started the discussion with them, you know, we kind of talked about the city's involvement, and they said they had already been told about how the city supported the, you know, Canby Hills and kind of the partnership that they have with us. So we had a reputation, you know, going into the discussion, which was kind of nice, so.
Yeah, it would be interesting to be kept apprised of their actions, because typically what they'll do is possibly find a brokerage firm to help locate potential buyers or get an appraisal in line. So it'll be interesting to keep in touch with Certus or whomever the receiver
I don't know how
is.
much, yeah, I mean, it's a private business, you know,
Right,
and
but-
they have no real need or duty to let us know, but, you
Right.
know, but,
It'd be nice to know what's going on,
yeah. So, which I think they
But-
will do.
right? Depends
Well,
on,
and I think they recognize too that even though we don't have any other financial involvement, we're not a real stakeholder in the building itself,
right, true.
that there are other issues that will come about if they try to go a secondary user route, so.
Exactly.
I think they're cognizant of that effect and know that they would have to work with us,
Yeah.
so.
As long as the zoning's by right, we don't have any
And,
say
you
in
know,
it.
we just wanted to make it clear to them that we wanted to participate in helping out in any way we could, especially in
Right.
terms of getting it back on its feet for a similar type use.
Yeah, hopefully that can happen.
I was appalled when I called the governor's office, and his administrative assistant had no clue this was happening. I called him on the 16th. I also called several other people, including the county commissioner and state senator and state representative, and I got some responses back, but the problems as I perceived them was the DHS was not willing to make any adjustments to help Cambria Hills based on the information I received back, number one. And number two, that because of the bad press that the local scribes put out over the incident of the attempted suicide, that the people who were in the surrounding areas and hold positions of representative or state senators, they weren't willing to put their neck on the line because of the fact that DHS was not considering doing anything to help this facility. And the fact that the governor didn't have a clue is like, really? You know, you're sitting on $2.1 billion from the feds, and you can't see your way clear to do a temporary funding. It's beyond the pale for me. That's all I got.
I don't think the entire story's out on this thing yet. I think that there's more that's gonna come out, and I see that the city is essentially, we're in bed, so to speak, with the bondholders. you know, but we don't have nearly the financial exposure that the bondholders do.
But we don't have any financial.
Well, we've got sewer fees
That will get paid. It
that
may
will
be
get
deferred.
paid, yeah. Assuming that you're not gonna have a deal come forward where they're gonna ask for some type of an abatement. It's gonna be a question of political will, for instance, if someone comes forward and says, well, we can buy it, but we're gonna need this and this and this as concessions in the deal.
That could happen. yeah.
That could happen, Steve.
But there is no liability, so.
I'm not pointing fault or finding fault. I was very much in favor of the program. Of the entire thing. I will just say that I don't believe that the entire story is out on what happened, on what happened to the parent company. And I'll just leave it at that.
There is still a big need for this kind of service. And so, I mean, the hope is that someone would come in and want to provide this kind of service. Obviously, some things went wrong here, obviously, but there is still a massive need for children and teens to get this service. And this building was set up for that. So, I mean, I guess I still have hope that someone would come in and want to provide this kind of service because there is still people clamoring for this service.
Well, the governor was a proponent of the facility.
But he doesn't fund the facility, a private entity or the other players fund the facility, so, I would think anybody would be a proponent of trying to help these kids.
Right.
But it doesn't make it easy to fund it, and then COVID is also, like you said, an interesting storm of challenges.
As am I. I would love to see the services met where what Canby Hills was doing. I see this facility as so specialized that finding another provider, another operation to take that mantle might be finding a very difficult, finding the needle in the haystack. You know, if there's someone willing to take that on, it might be kind of a difficult partnership to broker. Am I right in saying that, or is there an opportunity here? I mean, I just hope that we don't have a blight on the city with a building sitting empty.
Well, I would say that there are a lot of players in the game that provide this service, but I'm sure there are some out there that if the proper arrangements can be worked out, and this is gonna have to be, I think, a cooperative effort between the bondholders of the Hills Group, the Department of Health and Human Services, and all the other entities involved to get this thing back up going to serve the same function. So it's gonna be one that cooperation is gonna have to come from all sides.
Right, given that they were one of the few, it said, in the state that provided that level of service.
There's two.
Maybe.
There were two.
Yeah, maybe, the hope, somebody from outstate or a new group or who knows, but yeah, I wish them luck.
Yeah.
That would be great to get that filled and meet that need. So any further discussion on that? So Jack, you'll keep us updated when you hear.
So we will attempt to follow up with service here very shortly, and hopefully we'll have maybe some good news next time we meet.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 6, the Marketing and Economic Development Report.
A few things to report here. Panagold Country Hearts, 18542 Ulysses Street Northeast, has been approved for their site plan for their new 22,300 square foot building by City Council on June 14th, 2021. The building plans are being reviewed by the building official, and the building permit should be issued within this week. Aggressive Hydraulics, the TIF financing for the project was approved by City Council. The building review for the 36,000 square foot addition has been completed, and the building permit will be ready to be issued the week of June 21st. Elavage First Edition. Staff has been in discussion with Quick Trip regarding their site plan requirements. As they begin to prepare the site plans for submittal, actually, we have a meeting set up with them tomorrow to review some of those items. Corey Burstead, the developer, notified staff that he intends to submit his concept plan, which would include that new street grid, for the residential and commercial portion of the project for the week of July the 5th. Staff has sent notices also in for the broadband request submittals for the internet service plan to the consultants that were identified and presented to the EDA at their May 17th, 2021 meeting. The deadline for the receipt of the proposals is July the 15th, 2021. The RFP has been posted on the League of Minnesota's and the City of East Bethel's website. The City Council also discussed a code enforcement issue at their meeting last week involving VIP transfers. PVS Auto at 1542 221st Avenue. The property and business owner requested a conditional use permit amendment to increase the number of semis and trailers stored on the site from 9 to 30. On June 14th, 2021, City Council denied the request because of the following findings of fact. The current non-compliancy of the conditional use permit is approved on May 1st, 2013. The fact that this site is not structured to accommodate the intensified use of the property. Traffic and safety concerns due to the close proximity of the intersection relative to the property with no designated turn lanes or signage. 221st Avenue is primarily used for residential traffic and does not support semi-traffic at this locations. Environmental concerns because of the close proximity to wetlands on the eastern side of the site. This has concerns with stormwater runoff and untreated pollutants from the semis running into the wetlands. The use of this site as a trucking terminal is not permitted as a conditional use in the B2 Central Business Zoning District. Again, council upheld the denial of the CUP amendment. They can still currently operate under their current CUP as long as they're not in violation. I did have an interesting call today from the owners. The owners did not show up at the hearing, and they claimed that the one owner came down with COVID and they couldn't attend the meeting. So there's really no appeal process to this. City Council could have the option of having them present their case, but I don't know that they would want to do that. That'll be brought before the council for them to give me some direction on that. But as of now, the proposal to expand PVS Auto, VIP trucking has been denied, and we will follow up with the other violations they have on their CUP. And I do have one thing to show. It's a short little video of some drone footage of the service road. This was provided by a member of our audience, Mr. Randy Plassance, and I thank Randy for this. And it's really short, but it's kind of interesting. This is what we looked like before construction started. This was taken, I believe, back in March of this year. And then kind of side by side of where we were approximately 2.5, 3 weeks ago. The project is moving along. It's on schedule. There was talk about a possible shutdown of the state government. If it is, this would not affect this project because we're not working in MnDOT right away, and funding for this has already been allocated to the city, so we're okay there. We were a little nervous at first, knowing that the contractor would probably have some issues if it were shut down. So everything's looking better on that side, and we're in good shape in terms of where we are with the funding having been secured and the fact that we're not working on MnDOT right away. One thing about it, if you've been down there, and I'm, I think the name Parkway is very appropriate. This being by the golf course, it's gonna be a very scenic drive too through here, so, I think it's gonna be another great addition to our frontage backage road system, and, again, they're on schedule to be substantially complete by October the 30th.
I think that's already in Harrington on the green there. So Jack, I have a question with that view. Just keep it going. The road's going off at an angle there, that's just for construction purposes, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I've had someone else ask me if the road's gonna curve right at the
No,
last 20 feet or something.
it's gonna be a total, 90-degree intersection. There won't be a little dog leg in it.
So we'll get the response for the broadband RFPs by July 15th. So we'll be able to review responses at our July meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, great.
And that's the next question I wanted to ask. I know some people have vacation plans. Is everybody gonna be available for the July 17th meeting, as you know at this time?
Yes.
Yes, right now.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good. So last item on the agenda, I just, 6.0, I just skipped by it, is the city council report. 7.0.
The only thing I have to add on to the business report and what we've been discussing tonight is the city chose to pay off the 2008 A and the 2013 AA bonds early. And then we chose to do it right away too. We initially were gonna do it as part of next year's budget, and we've just, between Mike and Jack and their recommendations, that there's additional $20,000 in savings, I think it was, if we paid it off like right away. And so council was, and we have money in our reserve to do that, so.
Great.
2008 and what? What was the other?
2008A and 2013A.
And what are those bonds for specifically again?
The 2008A were for the Castle Towers sewer plant that we purchased back in 2008.
Okay.
And the 2013A were the refinance bonds that we used to build the fire station and the storm warning siren system.
Okay.
So the fire station's paid off.
All right.
Think of it that way, so. No more
Free and
lien.
clear.
Let's start another one.
That's actually all I have to add to Councilor Brothers.
Okay, happy solstice, summer solstice, officially summer.
Oh, it is.
And believe it or not, June is almost done and July is next month with booster days. So July 17th, we will have a booster day. It will just be a late afternoon, evening event at Booster Park, and there will be a band, fireworks, food trucks, I think a couple other activities, but there's not gonna be any parade or anything, it's just gonna be all evening activities. So again, that's July 17th, that Saturday.
Yeah, I think 5:30 is what I saw.
I think,
started it.
yeah,
I looked at the website right at.
Party in the park.
yeah. And that's all I got.
Sounds great. Well, if no one else has anything to add, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.